Okay, welcome everybody to the second part of Sudan education curriculum from BAAB, live from Khartoum, and I like to hand over it to Khartoum directly. So you can start. Thank you very much for being here today.
Education curriculum from BAAB, live from
thank you very
Khartoum,
much indeed.
and I like to hand
It's
over
our pleasure to be with you for the second day.
to Khartoum.
On yesterday talk, we have started speaking post-digital era, and at the second part, we have discussed the adequacy of educational curricula to be digitalized. Second part, we have discussed the unique challenges facing education to be was about the content of educational curricula, and we have discussed the current ongoing debates on the content of educational curricula. And one of these topics we have discussed was the reformations done by the Ministry of Education in the post-revolution, and these reforms, these content reform, were very much controversial and drawing much debate and conflict at the grassroots and the political level. And we have given one example of history textbook, and history textbook for the 6th grade at the basic level was a subject of a very extensive debate, and part of this textbook was on the history of European Renaissance, and it reviews some of the development of art in the European Renaissance, and it quotes some of the works of the different artists. One of these, Michelangelo, and it's a masterpiece of Adam's creation. Adam's creation piece has resulted in very severe wave of criticism to the Minister of Education and to revolution forces and to the National Center for Educational Curriculum and Educational Research, and to the head of this national center, Al-Garray, and much of the criticism and the debate from Islamist and fundamentalist forces, and some of these people benefited from the Bashir's regime. They were powering much more critique and attacks on this curriculum. Their point that Adam's creation masterpiece represent an embodiment of God character, and which they see from a religious point of view as prohibited, and God should not be embodied from their point of view. And much discussion, much debate was done on this level, and even people from a non-Islamist background joined this debate, And regarding this image, we understand that much discussion about the curriculum and the image was not about educational or curricular purposes, but for political, for ideological ends and so on. So even if these groups have some reservations on this image or another image, uh, it was not an issue of much debate. But as I told you, the issue is not merely an educational or curricular related issue, but it was a political battle, and this battle at the end reached to the level that the head of National Center for Educational Curriculum and Educational Research have resigned, have tendered his resignation because of this issue, and at the end it resulted in what I could say removing the Minister of Education from his place in one way or another. So this example of of educational curricula show how the content of education in the post-revolution context is an issue of extensive debate, and much much discussion is still ongoing on curricula and on curricular reformation, since the Prime Minister has freezed the work of all the reformed curricula, and parents and families are also looking to this issue with much concern. And this point, as I told, reflect the politics of education in Sudan, and it reflects also part of the political economy of the textbook industry, because textbooks are not mostly produced by by governmental publishing houses. Most of the books are presented in form of grids to private publishing houses, and these publishing houses has already published a lot of books in the former curricular series, and the current curricular reform is against their profits and their investment on textbook industry. So part of the campaign is there is a participation of those people benefiting from such industry, and this reflect the political economy of language, and also reflect the politics of the government expenditure in schooling. In Sudan, the government do not fully fund education, and governmental education is not there is no there is no good budgets for educational development in Sudan. And if you compare governmental funded schools and these private run schools, you will find huge lags in the in the equipment of these schools, in the training of the schools, in the digitization of these schools, and in the equipment potential. So if you go to Khartoum and compare any two schools, one private and one governmental, you will find a very huge lag between these schools economically and socially at the same time. And private internationals rely on the national textbook, and the equipment for this textbook is different from governmental schools, and the quality of education is completely different. And the enrollment in these schools requires a certain economical status. And if you look at private international schools, they are mostly located in wealthy neighborhoods in Khartoum, and they are and people, students of humble economic backgrounds, are not able to be enrolled in such schools, and they are forced to continue their education in governmental schools that are less equipped and uh, providing less quality education, and the language of instruction is mostly Arabic, and while in private schools the language of instruction is English, and the students could access computer, could access free internet in these schools, and they could participate in extracurricular activities inside and outside the country. And this show how the political economy of education is important in understanding these relations. And I think this is part of what we have raised yesterday. And I think if Marwan has something to add about this issue, it would be good.
Yeah, hello everybody. First of all, I would like to say something to the Sudanese people in this glorious day. Today is 6 April. 6 April was a turning point in toppling Bashir regime, the Islamist regime. And I hope that we as Sudanese will go forward and fix what is not working up to now. Now it's almost 2 years since the revolution, and we're not moving at all, but things are deterioration. Uh, Thank you for Muhammad. Muhammad took us in overview about the history textbook and Michelangelo creations, piece in Sistine Chapel, which stirred up a storm in Sudan, and unfortunately, as I mentioned before, this campaign was also joined by non-Islamists, and also this is what has been planted for 30 years by the Islamic regime in Sudan. There is a huge battle to be fought for the Sudanese people, especially in education. Education is the cornerstone for any development in the future. Um, I would like also to mention this. There was a very disappointing retreat from the new curricula, and even when the prime minister yes freeze the curricula and dissolve the government and form a new government. This new cabinet, up to now, it is without a minister for education. Just you can imagine, and because Professor Mohammed Al-Amin Al-Tom, the former Minister of Education, was a controversial person. He is a very respected person, and he was a professor at Khartoum University, and he initiated the School of Math in Khartoum University, and he is a well-known academician. So it is not easy uh, to take him out of the cabinet. This is a very important issue, I believe, that the cabinet up to now is without a minister of education.
Yeah, Marwan, if I can say something more, like
Huh?
continuing your talk, it's like I was remembering, like it was also many of those later was the Minister of Education, like Dr. Tom, and and also the مدير المناهج القراي, and
Yeah.
it was like a lot of later between them. It was more of like those academia professional later. If you can tell us more about like the debate, why the action when they took those letter and to come to the public, and it was from the Minister of Education and from the Al Garrai also, to have all this statement publicly, was published in newspaper, published in media, in the Facebook, and all the social media stuff. And the fact of this, of the fact of this, why he write those of those statement to the prime minister in public when he was a minister of education himself, and he could meet him in a private. So for me, it was very interesting how he tried to include the public about education, about the education, like, and what the government tried to do and try to hide in the same time. Yeah, if you can just um, tell us more about like those
Actually,
moments, what you talk about the
actually, the struggle and differences between Al-Garai and the Islamists and the fundamentalist is not new. Al-Garai, he belongs to the Republican Party, which is,
rightist.
yeah, and also is offering a new vision of Islam. Those Republicans led by the late Mahmoud Muhammad Taha, who has been killed by Jafar Numeri in 1983. 1983.
Yeah.
Hung by Jafar Numeri. He was actually the Islamist was seeing Mahmoud Muhammad Taha as an obstacle on their way to the power. And Al-Garai, one of his students or one of his followers, and they are, as I said, giving the Sudanese people a new version of Islam. So the Islamists use this, and as they say, Al-Ghai is an infidel, and he is following Mahmoud Muhammad Taha, which has been hung by Mary for what? For being accused by being non-Muslim for
Disbelieving.
yes, disbelieving in some of Islam's
Basic
yes, yes, on prayers and fasting, and this is allegations, being circled by the Islamists, and they use all this in to uh, to take a guy out of his post as a director of the new curricular reform, and 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 Al-Garay wrote a very famous resignation for the prime minister, and this resignation it has been circulated in the social media like Facebook, Twitter, and the other social media platforms, and it was a brave resignation, and but unfortunately, as I said before, also there was a very disappointing retreat from this, and form of the curricula. It was a very diverse effort, and it was very also individual effort to stand against this. Also, I would like to mention that education, as Muhammad touched this point, the education budget from the national budget, it doesn't worth anything. It doesn't worth. We do have schools here, not not just there is a lack of equipment. There is no equipment at all. You can see the pupils sitting on the ground, and even there is no blackboards, and the teachers are not trained. This is a result of privatization, which engulfed all sectors in Sudan during the past 30 years of the Islamist regime. The privatization of economic and health and education, and it was in education it was the worst. It was very worst in education. Mohammed mentioned that there is a private school here in Khartoum, attended by children of wealthy people. Maybe I can name some of them, like Kicks. It's a very well equipped school with pools and theater, and even they bring teachers from outside Sudan, from Canada, from Great Britain, and elsewhere, and they are giving actually their children a very decent education, and the grassroots children, they don't have anything just to go to the public school, and at the end they will not compete. They will not compete with those in getting jobs, in in the future. So privatization was one of Professor Muhammad Al-Lamin Al-Toom. He, his plan was to give those pupils in public schools a decent education so as to compete with those. And when, as a parent, when I find this public schools is giving my child a decent education, there is no reason to enroll them in those very expensive schools. In KICS, if you want to enroll your child in KICS, you have to pay more than $25,000 a year, which is not affordable for the Sudanese people. So they are making a community, privatization, they are making a community, and they are also expanding the gap between people on the grassroots and those who are wealthy. And I don't know if Muhammad has something to say.
Yeah, I could simply say that what Marwan has talked about at the end leads to inequalities in employment, in qualification, because those families with high economical statuses will be able to access high quality education and will at the end uh, win good jobs in the country, while those with
Actually, they will run the country.
yeah will while those with no good economical status will not be able to access good education, and needless to say that they will not access good jobs because no good qualification. And it's
Yeah, in the last census in Sudan, the population of Sudan is 40 million, 40 million person here in Sudan. More than 45% of this population are under the age of 15. And when they are not given any decent education, they will be lost. This is a waste of country resources. That is that is sad, actually.
Yeah, I
Sorry for
was more
interrupting.
also thinking, Muhammad and Marwan, is like when you look to the new idea of this transitional government in Sudan, and when you think about all what that like the fight they have against Dr. Tom, and why they move him outside the Ministry of Education, and why the Ministry of Education is still until now is empty, and here it brings us to the question of like through education and through that what is called like the state idea of education, that in all the level it was like from the school to university and all the different platform you can go and learn in it, and here that like the point of view of keeping like the idea of like because now as a rich person and a poor person in Sudan, now we have this, like this problem of like electricity and water, the infrastructure of the state is really falling down. And I felt like sometimes like the part of to say, okay, there is a divide community and there is a class community, and like to keep owning and like making different barrier between the people and keep them having them support, and there is something they can still gain shit from, a better thing from it comparing to the other, is to keep this kind of like that like unnormal class difference in basic things, you know, in basic way of being, like what the idea of a state try to develop itself and have education system like the one in Sudan. You know, it's very nobody put money in it. Nobody like the whole budget from the national budget, it is almost zero comparing to
Yeah,
everything they're investing in the
yeah.
army.
Yes, you are right, Rega. The education is not, unfortunately, is not a priority for the government. It's not a priority for the government. You know the government is controlled by the military, and the military is controlling more than. 80% of the country's economy, and this is not me who is saying this. This is the prime minister himself. He went public and he said that the military is controlling more than 82% of the country's resources. So yeah, so you know, it is not a priority at all for the government. It is not a priority for those who are in power now. And, Muhammad is telling me to move to discussion, and so let's move to discussion. Hello?
Yeah, I think like for everybody's there, people in this room of BAAB discussion, I think it will be nice if you can also let us, and the people also with you there, like staying with you, Marwan and Muhammad, and it's like will be good for us, like to move on if like there is something to build up of it, or like there's a question. I think it would be
Yeah, you
nice
know,
to
here today, most of the Sudanese are on the streets. It's 6th of February.
yeah. It's very symbolic day. We
Yes.
already thanks a lot to be there here. Today is 6th of April, and this is the day that like the people in Sudan was in 2019 get to the sitting in front of the army headquarters in the same place. Later on,
Yeah.
2 months later, they have in 3 of June they have the massacre of it. And today is 6th of April, so it is a day of memorial for like to those who they giving them life to make it possible,
Yeah.
whatever was like to have the battle at least with the government of Omar al-Bashir. Still, I mean like the ministry of it, but we still have the same structure. I will not say the same because it's a lie also, and that's
Yes.
we are there and we are talking now. This is not possible also before.
Now, actually, we
It
are
is
talking
thanks for us
politics.
and thanks for
Huh?
those. Yeah, yeah. The thanks for for the people give them life for this. So it is yeah. Of course, it make different to resist with
Yeah.
all the situation we are saying. Yeah. Yeah.
I might be very radical, but it's my own opinion. What I can
Yeah.
see here in Sudan, there is nothing changed. It is the same, maybe
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah. This is and I say this also agree with you, but that the point I say the point all the time seeing the resistance, the responsibility of continuity, and I see yeah, and I like wars were a better. This is a bit dependent to the situation, because I think the situation of Sudan is a situation of the global politics, you know, because this government being designed by here, you know, you remember when you are in Berlin one and you have this meeting about Sudan future, and it was like
Yeah,
all
you
that
mean
like
Khartoum
yeah,
process.
2000 Khartoum process, yeah. And Khartoum,
Yeah.
Khartoum process, Khartoum future, it was called in
Yeah,
2009
even they don't bother
in
to,
Damascus.
they don't bother themselves to invite any Sudanese to represent
Yeah,
Sudan. Well, they were talking about
yeah,
Sudan.
yeah. It was more of like this, like
There was
like the idea of colonialism or
representative of
post-colonialism, where the
United
we are living in it.
States, United Arab Emirates, Egypt,
Yeah,
European Union. Everybody was there, but not
US,
is represented.
Russia, China, yeah, all
Yeah,
this
yeah.
represented
Everybody,
to talk about
everybody
Sudan
was there.
future after
Nobody is represented.
the massacre.
Unfortunately. So, you want to say that, Raja, now those who are running the country are compradors, huh?
No, I never say that.
I
Never
believe
say
that.
that, don't
I
quote me.
believe
But
that.
I would say to you something. Let's be clear, okay? And maybe Muhammad, now you're part of. I heard a bit about like you're trying to help with the peace agreement deals and exactly what the following after Juba an agreement, Muhammad. And I say, of course, I know it would make different to be Sudanese. It's a very long debate about is what the revolution is used for or not. But I say at least uh, it is our choice now to say, oh, everything is fine, or when we don't have a choice to say everybody know it's not fine, and now we have the debate to say it's fine or not fine. This is the point, and this is that why it's important we come to this kind of event and we talk about it and we discuss the thing, because we have to know where we are now, what we are doing now with our this. And because yes, if you want to go to the demo now, you can go. Of course, the risk is still there, but the risk of dying is less. But it is important now to go to the demo, and we will have to think about a different method of resistance. So the question here, if you what we are trying to resist and which the enemy we have. And I think for me, from the beginning, I didn't expect it would be too much different than what it is now. From the beginning when I joined the movement in Sudan in 2018, and how like we all meet there again and we start struggling together again.
Yeah.
And
But,
but I think I was a bit
without
thinking about the global
education,
politics.
don't expect any change without education. Education is a cornerstone
You are
for,
right.
yeah. So now, I believe the Sudanese people have to put all their effort and pressure on to have a decent education, to have a good budget for their children's schools, to have them well treated, well trained. So as we are talking about this digital era, and everything is digitalized now. I do have my own students on the university. They don't know how to deal even with the laptop. They face problems with the mouse and the keyboard, the basic things. You know, that is why. That is because all of them are coming from rural area. They don't have been trained to use this stuff, to use this technology, and that is why now in this time of pandemic, in specific, we cannot continue our education, distant education, the university put a lot of money and bought a digital system to continue the educational, process from distance. But unfortunately, even those students, when they go back to their villages, They don't have electricity. Even in Khartoum, there is no electricity most of the time. At this very moment, we are talking at this very place we are sitting in, the generator is running. There, there is no electricity, let alone a remote village in Sudan. So there is no electricity, no internet coverage. The students are not trained to use this technology. So how can we face the world? How can we catch up with the age? It's a new era. Everything is digitalized. As Mohammed said yesterday, digitalize or die. And what I'm seeing now, we're going to die.
We are actually dying. You see,
Yeah.
you have also touched on the issue of peace and the ongoing debates. We do really regret in the past 2 days people are being killed at El Binena, and much more victims are dying. You see, so there is peace agreements, and really it is very sad to hear such issues, and there is really the issue of peace is one of the top issues, because in Darfur and in the Noble Mountains there is so many areas of conflicts, and people in these areas were suffering to access educational resources, and so many things due to that, due to conflicts. So the issue of peace is very important. And now, if we look at the negotiations of the SPLM, North Al-Hilo, and the new government, if we look at the declaration of principles, we'll find that issues of the nature of states, of issues of diversity representation, and issues of religious representation are taking very great space. And this is simply because the Ingas regime has imposed their own view of managing and representing cultural, linguistic, and religious diversity. They imposed Arabic language and Arabic Islamic culture on the diverse Sudanese people, and on different areas of Sudan. So these peace talks now, there is a debate about secularizing educational content, about federalism in education, and so on. And much debate are result of the regime's practices on managing education and diversity. As I see, there is a question here.
What is the plan of resistance?
We as university lecturers, or as scholars, we are aware of our social and intellectual responsibility toward our people, and most of our work and research do really engage on social issues. We are for years working against social inequalities and political inequalities. We were lecturing and researching the different aspects of dominance inequalities that the Engaz regime has practiced, and we were politically resisting the Engaz regime during the revolution. We were at the streets with the people. We are protesting against the Benghazi regime from the very first day of the protest until the fall of the Benghazi regime. Now, in the post-revolution, our resistance to the inequalities of our new government, which is a government come as a result of the revolution, does not stop. We will not take side with any government or any group that practice any inequalities. We are moving from our social responsibility as scholars or as intellectuals. We have to invest in a certain responsibility, and we are trying to practice our responsibilities toward our people, toward oppressed people, and to take the voice of those people who had no voice, and we see that as an integral part of our academic, social, and intellectual responsibilities.
Yeah. Personally,
That is great.
I cannot talk about plans of resistance, but what I can say now, people are on the street. Now, at this very moment, people are on the streets resisting what is going by this transition government. We brought this government, but people are disappointed, and now they are trying to correct the path of the government. As as academicians in the university, we believe, Muhammad and I and other colleagues, we believe that Sudan's problem should be addressed scientifically and academically. We tried so many different approaches, a political approach and other approaches, but our firm belief that the problems of the country should be addressed scientifically and academically, and we are trying to engage.
Also, regarding the issue of plans, we are working on different research projects.
Yes,
And
also
we are engaging with the current situation and
social
the basis of
organizations.
inequalities. And to me, for example, I have my own research projects, my fixed deadlines for publishing, work on different projects, and the different research projects on linguistics or on diversity management or education. These projects directly address the basis of inequality. They address the issues of political injustice, discrimination.
Yeah.
We are working on these issues, and we have our own plans and timelines for publishing, for presenting public lectures, for doing so many things, and even within our classroom. I myself, I have been working in the last 2 years within the classroom to make change, even adopting more reflexive and more critical ways of teaching and of empowering our students, and we are trying to help students to think and to develop their potential and to produce knowledge collaboratively. And I think we are trying to do something, and it is part of our national duty toward our people, toward our country, and toward the people throughout the country.
And this academic research, which we are working on it, we are trying not to keep it in the shelves of the libraries of the universities. We are trying to take it to the people, and we don't have the all knowledge. We also learn from the people. We learn from them. We are trying to take our research to reality, and to spread awareness, and also to this local knowledge of the people are also is important for the Sudanese people. One of the most problem, one of the problems of the Sudanese people that they don't know each other. People they have different different imaginations, different imagery about for example, people in the eastern Sudan, they don't know. They have really a false picture about people in the northern or in the east. So knowing each other also might help.
We hope we answered your question, and I think if there is any other questions, or if there is any other point or comments need to be addressed, you are highly welcome to raise them.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
Akmal.
Oh, Furu, please go on.
Yeah, sorry, I still have one question if the time allows us to ask.
I think there is 8 minutes.
Okay, should I ask, or do you have
Yeah, you are welcome, Muslim.
Okay, so my question is that, as you mentioned yesterday, we are globally somehow in the time of a political transition. I mean, more or less in different parts of the world, with different intensities somehow, just because as a result of the pandemic situation and the crack that it made it possible. And we see like lots of different events happening. And my question is, some events are taking the shape of
We lost our voice actually.
okay, from where didn't you hear?
There is a problem with the sound, we cannot hear you.
Okay.
Marwan, I think when she's talking, you have to close your mic. You will get it better. So when she asks the question, we have to close the mic, all of us.
Should I try again? Do you hear now? Cool. I was saying that if we can say that we are globally in the time of political transition with different intensities around the world and with different sources and reasons more or less similar. And as I see it, there is some kind of violence in a way involved in these movements that are happening, which might be inevitable to have. And when you were saying that you are mostly investing in, it was interesting for me that you were saying that you want to address it in the form of educational system. And so what are your thoughts around what is happening on the streets around the world, or where do you see yourself in that, or what is your position regarding those?
Would you please repeat the last part of the question?
What is our position from what?
Yes. How do you see your position investing or rooting much more in the educational system and academia? How do you see that this could meet what is happening on the street, or how do you make it happen? How do you make this connection?
Okay, thank you for your question, Fufu. I think it's a good question to be asked regarding our positionality from what's going on now from the educational reform. Before the fall of al-Bashir regime, we were protesting against the kind of educational curricula and about the representation of people in the curricula and the content of education and the ideologies of education in these curricula. We were actually working against the basis of inequalities in representing different people coming from different backgrounds in the educational curricula. In the post-revolution time, we, with other colleagues, we have organized workshops, we have organized training sessions, and we have also worked on research to support the transition from ideologically charged educational curricula to new educational content that can support political transition in Sudan. And we understand our responsibility, our intellectual and educational responsibility of pushing change in educational curricula. I myself in my classroom, as I told you, I started to implement a new teaching, which is which is which is which is influenced by the revolution. And I have last time I have a course of writing, of reflective writing, and much of that course was on asking the students to write their about their experiences of the past regime, about how they were victims of the past regime, about how they started to be aware of this regime, about how they protest against this regime. And all these writings were part of consciousness raising of the students and making them more reflective about what's going on, and making them aware of the ideological stances of the Engas regime. So these are examples coming from the very classroom, and this is part of our positionality toward this curriculum at the local level. And these positionalities, though they are subjective, coming from a subjective stance, they are also intersubjective because we share them with other colleagues, with other scholars working on these areas through collaborative research and discussions. And also, these positionalities are not only at the local level, but they represent a global South epistemologies, because we understand our position from the global north and the knowledge produced there in the global north, and to what extent knowledge regarding curricula, regarding educational reform could be of value in the global north, in the global south context. We are also positioning ourselves as I told you, from a global south perspective. So this is our positionality, both at the local level, at the local subjective and intersubjective level, and also at the global level. We understand that we are descending from the global south, and we understand there is challenges, for instance, of publishing in journals of the global north, because even the knowledge of education and educational context in the very context of Sudan is not that universally held knowledge provided by the global north perspectives. In so many journals, we face problems of publishing, because publishing itself is a game, and there is much gatekeeping of global north knowledges, and so many issues regarding curriculum. Regarding one good example is the example of classroom, the European architectural view of the classroom that held unquestionably by reviewers as at global north journals is do not really work in the context of Sudan, because we have a very different context, we have a very different organization and representation of classroom, and it's completely different from what going on there. And so many series produced in Euro-American context do not really work here at this context. And much of this debate, I have observed such a debate on studying Smile textbook, which is produced by collaborative effort of local material writers and international ones. And these are real problems, and I think you have something to say about this.
No, it's what? I just mentioned the time for you.
Yeah, okay.
Now it's 62 minutes.
I hope you address.
Yeah, but I just want to stress this the knowledge protection in the global north and global south. If we can really accept these terms, global north and global south, and first world and third world, and I don't know, but I believe there is also knowledge produced here in the global south, and as Mohammed mentioned, there is giving gates for this knowledge to come out. We do have real problems with publishing. We cannot call it Springer. One of the most renowned and leading academic journal. We do have problems here inside Sudan with yes. So that is all we wanted to say. And now we passed the time by 4 minutes, and we thank you for being here and for the discussion, and hopefully that we meet again in the near future.
Maybe Ekmal was want to say something.
Okay.
Ekmal is like is one of the person who started this festival from before.
Hello. Oh, thank you for this wide information about the situation and your resistance. I mean, I just wanted to ask some questions, but Foro asked, and you already kind of replied that. I just wanted to clarify the position of the opposition there. I mean, being opposition is a very confusing issue now, because who are your alliance and who are your, you are opposed to is kind of strategically changing, I guess. I just wanted to understand this situation. I mean, because you are also working in the universities and you are part of the, the system, and you are kind of in between position. I mean, you are not. I also wanted to know. I mean, what is there a political positions opposing to, okay, the Bashir is okay, but now to the government, but are there also other NGOs and grassrooted kind of positions, especially regarding maybe in general, but maybe in education?
Yeah. As we work in the universities, and we are part of the government by our jobs, but politically, we do have our own views, different views of the government. I personally, I think this government is applying what is dictated by the National Monetary Bank and this monetary or international monetary organizations, which is not good. Our position, there is, yes, there is different strategies, and we moved from supporting the government to oppose this government now, because the government is not fulfilling, yes, what is it is promises is not.
Yeah, I think that the idea is very simple. As Marwan has said, we are independent intellectuals, and our position from opposing or supporting the government is an ethical question.
Yeah,
is an ethical question. We are against social injustice, regardless of who practices it. Al-Bashir regime, we revolt against that regime because the regime of Al-Bashir is dominating people, is practicing injustices and inequalities, and we are against inequalities of any type, of any form. We are against
discrimination,
these things, and it is informed by an ethical and intellectual position. And we support the revolution because the revolution is important. But supporting the revolution does not necessarily mean you are supporting the government now, because the government now does not really represent the demands of the people, the demands of the revolution, because so many practices of this government do not really support what people break for the streets.
Yeah.
So our position is an ethical position. If the current government, which is supporting the revolution, has slided in any position or practiced any practice we see as supporting injustice, we will stand against this practice, regardless of who do it.
Yeah, thank you. I can understand that it's difficult, and I mean, of course, clear your situation, your position is clear. But yeah, I just wanted to understand the general opposition there. But yes, thank you for the explanation. And yeah, it is.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I have a question too, if you allow me. Thank you very much for the discussion and all your explanation, which are really insightful. I was wondering a bit about the knowledge system, and you were saying that you have kind of you're trying to develop or fight for an own knowledge system and an educational system, an education curricula in Sudan. And how could such a system be implemented? You already described the problems of privatization that the former regime has been doing, that apparently the publishers are on one side, which has kind of nothing to do with the content, but is more kind of an economic entity. And I was wondering how you can imagine to implement such a system which is rooted in the entire society in Sudan. Maybe it's not even one when you think a bit far from the nation state as such, but more about maybe communities.
Actually, I think getting rid of this system of privatization of education is a very painful process, and it's a long process. It should be done gradually, because there is hundreds of thousands of students are enrolled in these schools, and you cannot just lock down all these schools in a fortnight. It has to be done gradually. First of all, reforming of the public schools. This is a very important thing, which will convince the parents and the families to bring their child to public schools, and reforming the curricula also, equipping the public schools with good equipment, enabling them to offer a good education and decent education to the people in it. I think the problem is privatization is deeply inculcated in the Sudanese educational system, and it's a real problem. It needs to be addressed, actually, and one of the methods is fixing the curricula, as I said, and equipping the public schools with.
I could say we need to think about this issue within a totality.
Yes,
because the issue is not just an issue of content, is not just an issue of political economy, is not just an issue of the inertia of the nation state in the country, or the nation state versus the diverse situation in the country. It's a complex problem and a multitude of challenges that arises. We need to think about these issues within a totality, and we understand that there is attempts of reforms, and there is challenges that are driven by economic reasons. So we need to look at this issue within a totality, and we need to look about the change of education within a larger totality of change that the revolution is enforcing. So the issue is not unisided issue. It has multi-sided issues, and there is different challenges facing us on this issue, and we need to think about this issue within a totality. Hope, Messias, we have answered your question.
Thank you very much.
If you still have time, can I ask one question? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to keep you, but okay. You said okay. I just wanted to. I mean, it is a long and probably long process to expect that the changes in education system, privatization, etc. It's a quite long process. Just my question is, yeah, we have the similar problems here in Turkey too. I mean, that privatization and changing in the ideology in the government schools. And but my question is digital in a way can be a solution? Although you said that the connection problem, everything is problem, but I mean, still, you know, this digital infrastructure will somehow probably develop even much faster than the changes in education or political social ground. So moving in that area and maybe an alternative developments in that education in digital.
I do understand your question. The issue of digitalization in the context of the revolution was an important alternative in the hand of protesters, and to extend that it questioned the sovereignty of the state, and the people from different places use internet connectivity and social media to resist the regime. To extend that in the post-massacre time, the internet connectivity was locked down, and the transitional military council spokesman literally labeled or described the social media as a threat to national security. This case indicates that digitization was an important strategy for providing voice, for providing an alternative to the people resisting the regime. But in the case of educational system, the issue is more complicated because at the protest, most of technology was used through smartphones and so on. But we observe that the level of digitization in the educational sphere is much more slower than what's going on the public sphere. But we could expect in the coming years, such issue could help to provide an alternative to the governmental point of view, the governmental stances, and to the governmental view. And we understand that there is so many groups, so many unofficial non-governmental groups are working on these issues, and they are trying to provide some solutions to ongoing these problems from a voluntary non-governmental point of view. So we have seen that digitizing do really provided an alternative in the time of protest, but we are not quite sure about to what extent can this could happen in the educational sphere. But we expect this can take place in the coming few years and could change the status of education, because in the time of the pandemic, a very concrete examples, we do not really see that we in the context of education are ready to the pandemic from digitization point of view, and our presence in the post-digital era has really questioned. And I do thank you for this question. It's an important question. Thank you very much. I hope I addressed your question and I gave you an answer.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So if there is no further
Yeah,
question,
it's like
Raja,
it was awesome. All the
Thank you.
question from everybody and was awesome. Do you hear me?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. There is just people talking next to me. Okay. So it was like there was awesome. All the like the question and the answer, like it feel like main thing I was thinking about it, and I think we are like as Muhammad was saying, it is like it's a question of like what we do and what we have planned, because it was like we already was doing a lot. Like I'm talking about you, and I'm putting my voice with you as like someone interested in education, message, and ideology, and for sure there is a lot of things to do in this sector itself, and there's a lot of work that have to be done. And yeah, thanks a lot, and thanking everybody here. If you some like, and I think we passed the time. It's 2:30 almost, and if you everybody finish with the question, maybe we can close this session and we say goodbye for everyone.
Thank you very much.
Hello, is yeah, I think we can open the mic, all of us now. We can open all our mic now.
Okay, thank you very much, Raja, and all the people
We
that
joined this session. We were really happy. We are really happy that we talked and we discussed this issue of education curricula in Sudan. And actually, your questions and discussion open a new new views for us to think about, and especially in these questions about privatization and problem of privatization. Thank you very much, and that we meet you again.
thank you very much, Raja, and all the people there. We are very pleased to have this discussion with you, and we do really learn from your questions and from your comments. We are really grateful for you. Thank you very much.